Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be focusing on finding missing angles and sides, but this time we're going to be using cosine. Again, we're going to show that mastery in class by scoring at least an 80% on an exit ticket. Hopefully you have the notes in front of you. If you don't, take out a blank sheet of paper and we can get you a fresh copy tomorrow. Yesterday we focused on the sine ratios. Now today we're going to focus on cosine. Again, we're still talking about SOHCAHTOA. But now we're focusing on that middle one, the CA. And the C in this ratio stands for cosine. The H is still your hypotenuse. That variable does not change. However, A is going to stand for adjacent. And in case you forget, adjacent just means next to. So it's going to be the side that is right next to your angle. If we look at our practice, again, we want to be able to label our sides. Your hypotenuse is always the side opposite the right angle. So 13 is going to be my hypotenuse in this case every time we talk about this right triangle. If I want to do the cosine of A, well, if I look at A, I want the side that's right next to it. I can't choose 13 because 13 is already my hypotenuse. So I have to choose one of my legs, which is 5. So my ratio for cosine of A is going to equal 5 over 13. If I talk about the cosine of B, again, 13 is still my hypotenuse, so that can't be my adjacent. That means 12 is my adjacent, so the cosine for B is equal to 12 over 13. Again, adjacent just means next to, but make sure you label your hypotenuse first, because if you don't, you might accidentally put the hypotenuse as your A. We don't want that. That's going to change the whole problem. Now, when it comes to our practice problems, again, and I'm going to put a note at the top, your calculator, if it is not already, please make sure it is in degree mode. Because once again, you can do it in radian mode, but it'll give you a totally different answer. Now, if we look at number 9, we're trying to find our angle. So I'm going to start by labeling my hypotenuse, which is 52, and that makes 44 my A. It is right next to the angle. So that means we're using cosine. So cosine of x is equal to 44 over 52. Now, I know the fraction 44 over 52 can be reduced. We're not worried about reducing it. Leave it where it is. Just like yesterday when we were solving for sine, we had to use inverse sine. Well, in this case, now we're going to use inverse cosine. And you only use this when you are solving for your angle. If you have the angle, we're going to use cosine. Inverse cosine is right above the cosine button in blue, so you would hit second cosine. In this case, my angle is going to be 32.2 degrees. And you can check yourself. If you type regular cosine of 32.2, you're going to get a decimal. If you do 44 divided by 52, you should get the exact same decimal. If we look at example 10, again, I want to label my sides. 24 is my hypotenuse because it's opposite my right angle. If I look where 19 is compared to x, that's my adjacent. So that tells me I want to use cosine. So cosine of x is going to equal 19 over 24. Again, we need to get x by itself, so we're going to use inverse cosine. And if I put that in my calculator, I should get 37.7 degrees. Now, when it comes to solving sides, again, we still want to start by labeling those sides. If I look at my angle, I need to first label my hypotenuse, which is 7. And if I look from my angle to x, it's right next to, so that's my adjacent. That tells me I'm using cosine. So now, since I have the angle, it's cosine of 62 is equal to x over 7. Well, I need to multiply both sides by 7 to get x by itself, so 7 times the cosine of 62 is equal to x. Again, in this case, just type that directly in your calculator. You should get 3.3. And make sure you check yourself. If you ended up writing the number 33 down because you forgot your decimal point, that wouldn't make sense. My hypotenuse has to be my longest side, so this side has to be shorter than 7. If we look at example 12, again, we're solving for a side, so let's label them. X is across from the right angle, so that's my hypotenuse. If I look at my angle to my side, it's right next to it, so that's my adjacent. So now I have the cosine of 24 is equal to 27 over x. Again, we want x by itself, so I'm going to start by getting rid of the fraction and multiplying by x. So x times the cosine of 24 is equal to 27. And then we're going to divide both sides by the cosine of 24. So x would equal 27 over the cosine of 24. And from here, just type it in your calculator. You're going to end up with 29.6. And again, make sure to check yourself. If my adjacent side is 27, that means my hypotenuse, because my hypotenuse is my longest side, it needs to be longer than 27. Well, 29.6 is longer than 27, so it will work. Please bring your notes and any questions you have to class tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you then.